Thank you for joining this presentation by the CTSI on changes at the NIH regarding clinical trials. This presentation will review the recent changes in the definition of a clinical trial, as well as new NIH policies that impact studies conducting clinical trials. For additional information about this presentation, please contact research help at urmc.rochester.edu. The NIH is enhancing the stewardship of the tax dollars it is given by increasing the accountability, transparency, efficiency, and dissemination of clinical trials. This enhancement will improve the NIH's ability to track human subjects research from the time of application to the publication of results. And because many research studies do not currently fit the Food and Drug Administration Amendments Act of 2007 as a clinical trial, many results of studies funded by NIH dollars are not being reported. There are currently three common definitions of a clinical trial that you may have seen in your research. The first is the FDA definition. An applicable clinical trial by the FDA definition is a trial involving an FDA-regulated drug, biologic, or device that is interventional, but does not include phase 1 studies of drugs or biologics, nor does it include feasibility studies of devices. Another definition is the ICMJE definition. This is from the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, and they have a more broad definition that they use to determine whether your study should be registered in clinicaltrials.gov before it can be published in their journals. Their definition of a clinical trial includes not only drugs, devices, and biologics, but also surgical procedures, behavioral treatments, dietary interventions, and other types of interventions. Which brings us to the NIH definition, which is very similar to the ICMJE definition. It includes all studies that would be defined as an applicable clinical trial by FDA, but also includes phase 1 studies of drugs and biologics, as well as feasible studies of devices, and studies of other intervention types, as I mentioned before, such as surgical procedures, behavioral treatments, etc. For the NIH, a clinical trial is a research study in which one or more human subjects are prospectively assigned to one or more interventions, which may include a placebo or other control, to evaluate the effects of those interventions on health-related biomedical or behavioral outcomes. Note that a placebo or control arm of the study is not a requirement, and that the study must be interventional and prospective. We will go over some examples of what is and what is not an NIH definition of a clinical trial later on in the presentation. The NIH's initiatives to enhance clinical trial stewardship fall into several areas: good clinical practice training, a single IRB policy, new requirements for registering your study and reporting results using clinicaltrials.gov, clinical review criteria by NIH study sections, a new clinical trial funding opportunity announcement, or FOA, and new application forms. The reforms and initiatives that NIH is implementing are as follows. For all research involving human participants, new forms will be required for collecting human subjects information, and for studies with multiple sites, a single IRB must be used. In addition, for research that meets the NIH definition of a clinical trial, training in good clinical practice will be required. A specific FOA must be used. New review criteria will be used to evaluate proposals, and registration and results reporting will be required in clinicaltrials.gov. So let's review again if your study is a clinical trial. These 4 questions will help you get there. The first, does your study involve human subjects? Are you prospectively assigning them to an intervention? Will you evaluate the effect of that intervention? And does your study have a health-related biomedical or behavioral outcome? If you answered yes to these 4 questions, your study is an NIH clinical trial. The website, shown here at the bottom of the slide, will take you to a tool that walks through these questions and provides case study examples of clinical trials and FAQs to help answer your questions. It is very important that you correctly identify your study as a clinical trial. It impacts whether you need to use a specific FOA. You will need to incorporate additional materials to meet the review criteria specific for clinical trials, and you will need to register and report your study on clinicaltrials.gov. The new requirement to submit an FOA for clinical trials is effective January 25th, 2018. Check Section 2 of the award information to determine if the FOA you have selected accepts clinical trials. New FOAs that are released in the future will indicate in the title if it allows clinical trials. And as always, be sure to check your FOA for updates at least 30 days before the due date. As of January 25th, 2018, Forms E application packages must be used for studies involving NIH clinical trials. The new PHS Human Subjects and Clinical Trials Information Form will consolidate information from multiple forms. It will also incorporate structured data fields and will collect information at the study level. This video will give a tour of the new forms. It is only about 10 minutes, so I'd like to have everyone watch it now.
Walkthrough of the PHS Human Subjects and Clinical Trials Information Form. NIH currently collects human subjects and clinical trials information across a number of application forms. We are changing our data collection strategy for grant applications submitted to due dates on or after January 25, 2018. We will continue to use the Research and Related Other Project Information form to determine whether your application involves human subjects research and to collect information like exemption codes and human subject assurance numbers. We will consolidate the remaining human subjects and clinical trials information currently collected on multiple forms into a new PHS Human Subjects and Clinical Trials Information form. This new form will allow us to collect detailed study-level information for the protocols included in your application. Before you begin filling out the new form, make sure you've completed the R&R Other Project Information form. The answers you provide on that form will drive the data collection requirements for our new form. As we explore this new form, keep in mind that the look and feel of the form will be different based on whether you are using Assist, a system-to-system solution, or Workspace to prepare and submit your application. For example, buttons may have different labels or may be found in a different part of the screen. But all the data fields and requirements remain the same regardless of these slight user interface differences. Now let's check out the new form. If you answer no to the human subjects involved question on the Other Project Information form, then that answer is reflected at the top of our new form. Just below the pre-populated information is a section with the heading, If No to Human Subjects. You'll need to answer the question, does the proposed research involve human specimens and/or data? If you answer yes, provide a justification for why you believe the application does not involve human subjects research. And unless your funding opportunity announcement provides additional guidance for the form, you're done with it. Simple. If you answer yes to the human subjects involved question on the Other Project Information form, your answer is again reflected at the top of the form. This time, you'll go to the section of the form with the heading, If Yes to Human Subjects, and you'll need to provide at least one study record. That study record may be a full detailed study record or a delayed onset study record. If you anticipate human subjects research will be done, but definite plans for this involvement cannot be described until other aspects of your research are completed, then you may meet our definition of delayed onset. Entering a delayed onset study is pretty easy. Simply provide a study title indicate whether one or more clinical trials are anticipated, and attach a justification. Your justification must describe why detailed study information cannot be provided at the time of application, and assurances that you will comply with all applicable policies, such as the use of a single IRB board for domestic multi-site studies that will use the same protocol, and a plan for the dissemination of NIH-funded clinical trial information. Note, delayed onset is not the same as delayed start, where the information is known up front, but the work is not done in the initial budget period. Unlike delayed onset, we expect a full study record for delayed start studies. Now let's look at a full study record. Study records are broken down into 5 sections. The specific fields you'll need to complete will vary based on the specifics of your application. I've marked the fields required for human subject studies with an HS icon, and the additional fields you must complete if doing a clinical trial with a CT icon to help visualize requirements as we walk through the study record. Section 1 includes basic information and must be completed for all studies, both those with and without clinical trials. It includes a study title up to 600 characters, which must be unique within the application, exemption code information, where the exemption code information provided on the other project information form was for the application as a whole. This field asks about exemption code information at the study level. A clinical trial questionnaire. If you answer yes to all 4 questions, the study will be considered a clinical trial, requiring you to provide trial-specific information. And finally, a clinicaltrials.gov identifier, often referred to as an NCT number. This is an optional field since you aren't required to register in clinicaltrials.gov until 21 days after your first participant is enrolled. As we look at other sections of the study record, you may notice our form and clinicaltrials.gov have many fields in common. Having a place on the form to collect the identifier positions us for future data exchange with clinicaltrials.gov to reduce data entry and provide more consistent information between systems. The additional sections in the study record are designed to lead you through our data collection requirements in a structured way. Providing specific fields for key information ensures each item has been given appropriate consideration. It also ensures we have the data necessary in a consistent format for review and oversight of the study. Section 2 is study population characteristics. You must complete this section for all studies unless Exemption 4 applies. You'll recognize the inclusion of women, minorities, and children attachment from our old forms, and many of the other items in the section are structured fields for information previously collected within the protection of human subjects attachment. The last item in this section is for inclusion reporting. All studies must include at least one inclusion enrollment report. We will no longer use the standalone PHS inclusion enrollment report form. Instead, data collection for up to 20 inclusion enrollment reports has been folded into each study record. For each inclusion enrollment report, you'll need to indicate whether an existing data set or resource will be used and whether the enrollment location type is domestic or foreign. There are also a few optional fields in the report header, including a text entry comment section. And there are separate tables for planned and cumulative enrollment data. Section 3 is the Protection and Monitoring Plan section. It includes the protection of human subjects attachment previously found on the research plan form. You'll want to read through our application guide instructions for this attachment, since some of the information previously collected here is now collected on other named fields in the form. All studies must provide a protection of human subjects attachment and answer the question regarding multi-site studies. If you propose a multi-site study that will use the same protocol to conduct non-exempt human subjects research at more than one domestic site, you'll need to attach your plan describing how you would comply with the NIH policy on the use of single IRB for multi-site research. The remaining fields in this section, the Data and Safety Monitoring Plan attachment, question about the use of a Data Safety Monitoring Board, and the overall structure of the study team attachment are only required for studies involving clinical trials, though other studies can include them if needed. Section 4 is the protocol synopsis. You're only required to complete this section for study records involving independent clinical trials. In fact, you'll receive a system error if you try to submit information in this section for non-clinical trial studies. The protocol synopsis includes a brief summary of the objectives of the study, including primary and secondary endpoints, a series of fields related to study design, including a description, the type, name, and description for up to 20 interventions, drop-down selections for primary purpose, study phase, intervention model, and allocation, and checkboxes for masking information, and the ability to provide the name, type, time frame, and description for at least one, but up to 50 outcome measures. We've also included a new dissemination plan attachment used to describe your plan for the dissemination of NIH-funded clinical trial information. You'll use this attachment to describe how you plan to meet the expectations of NIH's new policies, including the requirement to register and report your results in clinicaltrials.gov. The final section, Section 5, is for other clinical trial-related attachments, which, not surprisingly, is only used in clinical trial study records and only when an attachment is specifically requested in the funding opportunity announcement to which you are applying. We've seen how our new PHS Human Subjects and Clinical Trials Information Form consolidates human subjects information currently scattered across multiple agency forms, expands clinical trial data collection to provide the appropriate level of information to improve oversight, uses structured data fields to lead you through key requirements, provides a consistent format for reviewers and staff to quickly find key information, and aligns with clinicaltrials.gov to position us for future data exchange between systems. You'll find our updated application forms, including our new Human Subjects and Clinical Trials form, in the Forms E application packages we'll be posting at the end of October. Forms E application packages must be used for applications submitted to due dates on or after January 25, 2018. For more information about NIH's clinical trial changes, visit our website at grants.nih.gov/policy/clinical-trials.htm.
Okay, so that goes to show what the new Forbes E applications will look like in the future, and some of the things that you're going to be required to submit. If you're familiar with clinicaltrials.gov, you can see that the things that you enter are very similar to the types of data that you would enter into clinicaltrials.gov and into the new forms. Okay, so continuing on. Because the Human Subjects and Clinical Trials Information Form collects key elements from the protocol, the optional protocol submission will be removed from the appendix. Therefore, parent FOAs will never allow inclusion of the actual protocol in the application, and if included, it will be rejected. For institute or center FOA protocols, for institutes or center FOAs, protocols will only be allowed if the FOA specifies it. There will be a new review criteria for clinical trials in addition to the significance, investigator, innovation, approach, and environment that are currently reviewed. A study timeline and milestones section will need to be included for review. Good clinical practice, or GCP training, will be required for all funded investigators involved in the conduct or oversight of a trial. This policy became effective in January of 2017. The Office of Human Subjects Protection has GCP training available through their website, offered by Citi, and the link to that website is shown here at the top of the slide. As mentioned before, the registration and reporting of clinical trials must be done through clinicaltrials.gov. This became effective January 18th, 2017, so it is already in effect. If the study that you're doing is an NIH trial and it is initiated on or after January 18th, then you must register it in clinicaltrials.gov. The CTSI has a website with information about clinicaltrials.gov, and that website is shown here at the top of the slide. The Research Help Desk can also help you with registering your study or reporting results when the study ends. Domestic, multi-site, non-exempt human subjects research studies will require a single IRB of record, and this is true for any study regardless of whether it is an NIH clinical trial or not. This is good for all grant applications or contract solicitations due on or after January 25th, 2018. Exemptions to this policy are K, T, or F awards. Please contact the University of Rochester RSRB as soon as you know that you will be conducting a multi-site study so that they can make sure you are compliant with this policy. Now we will look at a few case studies of trials to determine if they are an NIH clinical trial or not. So the first study involves the recruitment of research participants who are randomized to receive one of two approved drugs. It is designed to compare the effects of the drugs on the blood level of a protein. So we ask ourselves the four NIH questions. Does the study involve human participants? Yes, it does. Are the participants prospectively assigned to an intervention? Yes, they're prospectively assigned to receive one of the two drugs. Is the study designed to evaluate the effect of the intervention on the participants? Yes, the study is designed to evaluate the effect of the drugs on the level of the protein in the participant's blood. Is the effect being evaluated a health-related biomedical or behavioral outcome? Yes. The effect being evaluated, which is the level of a protein, is a health-related biomedical outcome. So since we answered yes to all four questions, this study would be considered a clinical trial. This next study involves the recruitment of research participants with a disease X to test an investigational in vitro diagnostic device. It is designed to evaluate the ability of the device to measure the level of an antibody in blood. So again, we ask our four questions. Does the study involve human participants? Yes, it does. Are the participants prospectively assigned to an intervention? No, not in this context. The in vitro diagnostic device is not being used to modify a health-related biomedical or behavioral outcome. It is only measuring the level of an antibody in the blood. It is not changing that level, that antibody level in the blood. So this is not considered a clinical trial. Our third example involves the recruitment of healthy volunteers who will be randomized to different durations of sleep deprivation, including no sleep deprivation as a control, and who will have stress hormone levels measured. It is designed to determine whether the levels of stress hormones in blood rise in response to different durations of sleep deprivation. So the answers to our four questions are, does the study involve human participants? Yes, it involves healthy volunteers. Are the participants prospectively assigned to an intervention? Yes, they will be prospectively assigned to different durations of sleep deprivation, followed by a blood draw. Is the study designed to evaluate the effect of the intervention on the participants? Yes, the study is designed to measure the effect of different durations of sleep deprivation on stress hormone levels. And is the effect being evaluated a health-related biomedical or behavioral outcome? Yes, the effect being evaluated, which is the stress hormone levels, is a health-related biomedical outcome. Therefore, this study is a clinical trial. This website provides a list of over 35 examples of research projects and why they are or are not considered a clinical trial. You can use these as examples to determine if your study is a clinical trial. Alternatively, you can contact your NIH program officer or research help at urmc.rochester.edu. Thank you for watching this presentation by the CTSI on the new NIH policies for clinical trials. If you have any further questions about this presentation, please email researchhelp@urmc.rochester.edu or call us at 585-275-2107. Thank you.